Right. There you go. Right. Okay.
Now remember, you have this right here as a fader,
Okay.
or you can just click cut.
And
Right
then go
there.
to down. So I hit cut.
Yeah, cut. Just one time.
Down. Right. Cut it.
Did you guys go out and eat after I left Dr. Robinson?
That's better.
Uh,
No, we went to October Gallery for a discussion about art, black art, with Mercer Red Cross.
Hey man, the next time you guys come to my house, the door's open for you.
okay.
I had to go and clean in my bad clothing.
I want to stir fry some of those pea pods.
You gonna stir fry? Well, I better say something for you then.
All right, gentlemen, are you ready? Five, four, three.
Welcome to the Insightful Journal. Today we have as our guest Daral Addison, a botanist and the owner of Torpedopots, a very innovative way to grow fresh fruits and vegetables. He's going to tell us all about the Torpedopots and about how food is health and how it's connected to our life and longevity. Welcome, Daral.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. I appreciate you inviting me onto the podcast.
So tell me a little bit about the Torpedopod, what it is, how you came up with the ideal. Give us a little background about the Torpedopod.
You know, when we first started out, I realized that I wasn't able to provide healthy food for my family. So I figured if no one else is going to help me to do that, I had to do it myself. Torpedopot is a self-growing planter that all you do is put your seeds and your plants inside the planter, and it literally grows your plants for you. It requires no human involvement as far as the growing is concerned. It's designed to create a cradle, a loving environment for the plant that eliminates all the toxicities, the bacteria, and the negative fungus that would normally attack the plant. And at the same time, feed the plant, nurture it, and grow it so that it can produce a huge amount of food. And when this happens, the plants simply just flourish and take off, and you produce hundreds of pounds of food within these small containerized gardening growing systems.
That sounds very wonderful. I'm certainly looking for something like that myself. We're all limited in terms of our space. And I'd like to have fresh fruits and vegetables. I know I can't get them by buying them in the store. And so I try to grow a little bit of the herbs and, various fruits like tomatoes and things like that myself. And I was looking at your pod, and I think that this will be a remarkable way to grow fresh fruits and vegetables. Do you have one of the pods nearby so we can take a look at it?
Unfortunately, I don't, but I could walk around and get it. And I'm sorry I wasn't prepared for this, but I can go get it if you want me to.
Okay, well, we'll look at it later on because I certainly want people to see what it looks like. And tell me a little bit about how it works. One of the things I noticed that you have soil in it. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I was discussing with one of the state owners in Nigeria, and I said, in Nigeria you have over 200 million people, which means that you have over 1 billion growing containers, and not one of them is capable of growing food effectively, organically. So what the Torpedopot does, it's an advanced irrigation system, number one, that allows water to flow through and feed the plants. Plants like to be fed on a regular watering cycle. Number two, it nurtures the plant's root system to ensure proper growth. Its design has been laid out to allow the plant's root system to wrap around that particular planter at two different levels. Number three, it inhibits all types of toxicity. Most of the planters that we discussed in Nigeria and other places around the world, they really are toxic environments for the plant, toxic in many different ways. In one way, the containers leach into the plant's environment, which may not or may kill a plant, but they end up into the plant's biology, and that in itself ends up into the human, the mouth. And thirdly, what it does is that it also inhibits bacterial growth. This is the containers that we use are designed not to have dead spaces. That means no bacteria can grow, nothing fungal can grow in these dead spaces that would inhibit the plant's environment. And fourthly, it's act like a saturation chamber. So what it is, it allows water to flow in and out of the chamber, only holding about 40% of the water, so that the water can actually pass through and leave what's necessary water in there. We realize that most of the planting systems that are out there, they either choke the plant and die and kill off all the microorganisms because they flood their chambers, or they allow water to pass through and they become dry and they just die out. And you have to rebuild that microbial growth. So when you put all these things together in terms of its overall design, we created that circular design because we realized that we need to take full advantage of the sun and the rain and everything else is there. So it gives each plant the ability to take advantage of the full advantage of that environment. But when you look at it in its totality, we have to ask ourselves, we're not really in the business of growing plants. To tell you the truth, Torpedopot really doesn't care about the plants. We do in the long term, but short-term plants are not a concern. Because everything I explained, Dr. Robinson, is really about developing that microbial environment. These chambers have been designed to create a microbial environment, so allow them to produce and to flourish, because nobody can grow a plant, but these microorganisms can do it. So we create a biotic chamber that creates a balance in that plant's environment where you can adjust it anytime you want to have it grow as much as you want food or as less as you want in terms of food and beautiful plants.
That's interesting. Do you have to fertilize it, or how do you have to put nutrients? What do you do in order to feed the plants?
Yeah, that's a great question, Doc. And everybody asks me, Daryl, what we try to tell people is that when you look at the soil, the plant itself does not come from the soil. It grows in the soil. So the soil is just allows a plant to reach. What's in the soil? Soil is comprised of rat poo, bird poo, industrial waste. It's comprised of a lot of different things. And all living organisms find their place by eating off of what's ever in that, what we call soil. Some soils we've walked on and we compressed it so much that it has no oxygen in it, so therefore living organisms can't live. Some have been able to flourish, and there's a lot of gases coming out of it because the living organisms, they produce gas and they produce other chemicals, bionutrients for the plants. So what we recommend for our clients, there's two major types of soil on the marketplace. One is a miracle type like grow soil. And these are what we call, they're not real soil, they're supplemented soil. And these are soils that have been, as we say, chemicals have been included into the soil so they can release these nutrients over a long period of time. Once these nutrients are released, the soil is no longer any good. And then we have the second type of soil that we prefer, and that is where plants really come from. How do plants grow? Plants eat other plants. So what we tell people is that the fungal environment that's in that soil, not only does the fungus pass through the roots of the plant system, but it builds and finds itself in the body of the plant. So any living plant organism that is dead has that fungus built into it. So we recommend mushroom soil because of the fungal content. The plant interacts with that content and it starts to build its own environment. So we don't build a soil for the plant. We give the plant all of the materials that are available in the natural occurring environment. And then we let the microbes go to work to break it down. And the plant starts to determine what it wants. And then it determines how it's going to grow based upon that. And the water that we adjusted takes it off to a whole different level.
Well, it's very interesting because many people don't really know how plants work. And the interesting thing is that plants are really symbiotic, and they work in relationship to the things around them. So one of the interesting things about a plant is that the plant came before animals, but plants actually live off of what's called carbon, and oxygen or carbon dioxide, which is what we expel or waste. And so the plants take that and then they release oxygen so that we can breathe it. So there's a real relationship between plants and animals, and they both need each other. And the actual structure of the plant is not derived from the soil, it's derived from the air, because the plant takes the carbon that's in the carbon dioxide, and that's what it used to incorporate into its structure. So you're right, it's not the dirt that the plant really needs, and the other types of nutrients like calcium, iron, magnesium, all of those things. Well, those substances, they do come from the dirt. And a lot of people use what's called nitrogen. Fertilizers, nitrogen and phosphorus is what basically we use now. And that's really not a very good source of, you can use it,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Oh, no, I know. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm so glad
Expound on it.
Because, we realize that there's so much nitrogen all around us, in the air and the land. Nitrogen is all around us. So the last thing we need is more nitrogen. The question is how to release that nitrogen. And that's the whole torpedopot, is digest the materials inside of that planter to make these nutrients available for the plant. So no, I totally agree with you. We have overthrew nitrogen thinking that it resolves the problem. But when you throw nitrogen in a plant's environment, you disable the soil. And when you disable the soil, you get less nutritional development in the plants. And you're absolutely correct. And that's why I like talking to you, because your background and your expertise in this area of botany, I think is second to none.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. But this is the things that we have to deal with. So what's happening in today's world, because this is very important, that people have source to fresh and nutritious foods. So the foods that we're eating, they have become less and less nutritional over time. And the reason why is because of the way they are farmed, mass farming, and transportation of foods from long distances. I know that many times when you get a tomato, that tomato is not a locally grown tomato. And what they'll do is they'll harvest the tomato before it's ripe. It might even be green. And then they transmit it. And then when it gets to you, they put a gas or something on it to make it turn red. And it has no flavor at all. It was really interesting. I had grown tomatoes on my boat, actually. And I had a group of doctors over and people over. They were sports, enthusiasts and so forth. And I made them a Capri salad. Which was made out of tomatoes, basil, fresh basil, and a fresh mozzarella cheese. And I layered it in the tricolor. And when they ate it, they said, "This doesn't taste like anything I've ever had before." They said the stuff we were eating had no flavor to it. The guy said, "This is really good. I can actually taste the flavor of the tomato. It's not like just a piece of cardboard or something, And the basil had a spice and oil to it, And he was just like amazed at the flavors that were popping out of these vegetables that I literally picked off of the flowers and laid out for him. So we really are losing a lot when we don't have access to our fresh fruits and vegetables. The flavor and the taste is just so
right,
different.
Man.
You know what it reminds me of? It's the difference between canned tuna and real tuna. Okay, so when you eat that canned tuna, that's nothing like a piece of fresh tuna. So right. It's not even the same thing.
So right, Doctor, I was, and that's what's so good about the torpedopot. With these planting containers, we have, from one spigot in my house, I can hook up over 100 torpedopots. One torpedopot can grow 65 tomatoes for the big size ones. They can grow over 2 pounds of beans. They can grow pea pods, over 600 pea pods, snow pea pods. For radishes, they can grow close to 30 radish. So if one torpedopot is growing this volume of food, and you have the ability to hook up over 100 torpedopots at your house, well, automatically you turn into a small farm, an organic farm, that nothing else in the world could stand in your way. And so you're right. Having fresh fruits and vegetables. When I come outside every day, I eat fresh every day. Well, I say when I want to, because I still like eating sweets and I like eating, things that taste sweet. I like, I still like pastries and stuff like that. But because I eat so healthy in the backdrop, it compensates for all of other my nutritional deficiencies. And so I can eat what I want when I want it. And I think that's an option with Torpedopot that we bring to the table. You don't have to do subsistence farming anymore. It's not about digging in the ground for hours and hours only to get 1, 2 tomatoes. You literally can grow thousands of tomatoes now, and there's no human intervention. And I believe that that's going to really impact a lot and hopefully bring the patients that come to you with a better health profile than they have been.
Well, you have to tell our viewers how they can find out more information about the Torpedopot. Is there a site where they can go and find out information and maybe even order the pots? Can you give us that information, please?
Absolutely. Doctor, the site that we use is www.torpedopot.com. Torpedo, TORPEDO, POT.com. And from there, you'll be able to understand how we grow, the technology in which we use, so much information. And you'll be able to order the pots and to find out what capacity you like to grow and how much food you like to grow.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that the pots are very reasonable in terms of their costs, so that you can afford to buy them. They're not like those hundreds, of dollars that you have to pay for those hydroponic systems. I understand that these are very reasonable.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. One planter that we have, we designed these planters to last the consumer over 15 years. So that is what we're aiming for. Right now, we have our test planters that have been running now for over 6, 7 years now. So we're seeing how they behave, and we're designing them that way to last a long time so that the consumer only purchases once. This is with the challenge when I tell the consumers, every year, an average American spends $400 a year in gardening. That's the average. I mean, these hydroponic systems are cost over $1,000 to $2,000, $3,000. You just have this little small planter that can grow more food than hydroponics and traditional gardening combined. So there's no reason why your health profile, no reason why these clients are going to come to you, doctor, and say, I can't get healthy. There's no excuse for it now. We can actually build our environment, create healthy children, and create the world that we want to live in.
One of the things that we were studying with our group, the NBLIC, that's the National Black Leadership Initiative on Cancer, was that to reduce your incidence of cancer, it was recommended that you eat at least 5 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables a day. And this was a experiment and a program that was done by the U.S. government, and it was known as the 5-a-day program. And with that 5-a-day program, they had like the food pyramid, where they had the various different types of foods, and then on the base were your grains and your carbohydrate. But it's been proven by a scientific study that by eating those servings of fresh fruits and vegetables, there is a significant reduction in the types of cancers that we have. One of the things that I know, which is true, is that there is a lot less of your fats and saturated fats in the vegetables. And we seem to find a relationship between these fats and various types of cancer, like colon cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer. All of those have been, directly related to those negative fats. And of course, when you eat a vegetable, it's there's no saturated fat in a vegetable. So it's a much better way to deal with your life. Now, I'm like you. I'm not a purist. So I'll eat a piece of meat and I'll eat a candy and stuff like that. But one of the things that I have found is that you have to have moderation in the things that you do in your life. And that no matter what it is, if you do it to excess, it's going to be bad for you. So I think that people have to have a moderate lifestyle. I mean, you don't have to be totally strict, But don't eat meat every single meal and smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol and all of that. That's going to catch up with you. So
Right,
if you
right.
moderate the things that you do, you can live a long and healthy life.
I talk to my clients, and a lot of them tell me everybody wants a quick fix. So they go to these nutritional stores and they buy concentrated extracts of different vitamins and extracts from different plants and all these different things. And I am I graduated from School of Pharmacy, so I'm not by no means giving any medical advice because each condition is different. But all I'm saying is this: is that the traditional food that we have seen doesn't come in those concentrations.
Yeah.
So if you really want to change your life, you really want that balanced environment. And so getting food from its source, and I don't like to use the word organic because we don't grow organic food, we grow biotic food. Having the living organisms grow your food from the source as if it were originally done as quote unquote the Garden of Eden, you can't get any purer than that. And so getting that in your body is what I consider a divine requirement.
Yeah.
But at the end of
So
the day,
as as a pharmacist, as you know, one of the difficult things is absorbing the minerals and the nutrients that you
now,
need. They're
good
very,
point.
very hard
Very
to.
good point.
Like, let's take iron,
Wow.
for example. So anemia is the most common disease in America. Okay, that's what
Okay.
most people go to the doctor for. I'm a medical doctor, so I know most common cause is anemia, and it's I feel tired, I don't have any energy, and then when you measure their blood, you find that they're anemic, and
Okay.
it is what we call a iron deficiency anemia as opposed to a pernicious anemia, which is due to a vitamin deficiency of the B complex. But this is a deficiency which is due to iron. And there are many
Okay.
different ways that we lose iron. I mean,
Okay.
women have their menstrual cycle, so they lose it normally. And
Wow.
the cells turn over very rapidly.
Okay.
There's like about every 30 days, the entire blood system turns over and has to be replaced with new cells. They don't last very long. And you got to have sources of iron when you do that turnover. So what I
Right.
found was that certain states of iron are better absorbed than others. So when
Oh
you
man,
buy
dude, that's
these,
awesome.
when you buy these supplements, what you do
Right.
is you find that your stool will be dark, almost black. And the reason why is because you're not absorbing the iron. The iron is literally just going straight through you and going out
Wow.
in your stool. So you
Wow.
have to have the right form, the right state of the iron, in order for it to be absorbed. And you have to take the iron in small quantities so that it can be absorbed. You don't want to overload the system because it's going to give you upset stomach. It's going
Exactly.
to give you constipation, all of that.
And
Yes, go ahead.
we
Expound on that.
we were working with doctors in Africa. We have a seed facility in Africa, in Zimbabwe, where we target. Our goal is to target to provide nutrition through the food that we grow. I spoke with one of the doctors in I don't think it was Ghana. I'm trying to remember back what location it was. Well, we were trying to find out what deficiencies are they seeing in the children so that we could supplement them through the Torpedopot. And I think one of the doctors told me it was vitamin E was a huge deficiency in third world nations. And so we were able to target and grow the vegetables and grow the food that will target that deficiency. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about more. Even our grains in Zimbabwe, what we're doing with the hybrids in Zimbabwe is to be able to grow enough fiber inside of the diet, and we working through different minerals to be able to do that.
Well,
And so, yeah.
they do that now, but they do it for the wrong reasons. So
What do you
everybody
mean?
has heard about genetically modified organisms. And in fact, when you look on the side, it says no GMO. That's like a big thing that people are saying. But what's GMO? Okay, so you know what GMO is. GMO is
Right.
done to improve the shelf life and the stability of the food. It's not done to improve the nutritional value of the food. It's just the opposite of what we're saying, because we want to grow our foods to be more nutritional. They want to grow the food to be longer shelf life and to last longer. And in order to do that, you just think about
Wow.
it. If you want a food to last a long time, the food can't be nutritional because something would eat it. You know,
Exactly.
if it was good food, something else would eat it. It wouldn't last long. So you know the food is no good when you can
Oh
leave the
boy.
food on the shelf and nothing will eat it. You know
And
that
it's so
food has no
interesting.
value.
We have no idea how contaminated our food supply system.
Yes.
See, most people look at it as the store shelves and say, "Hey, listen, man, this food is rubbery looking, or it doesn't taste like it used to taste in the past." And but we don't realize is that these foods are made available because of the seeds, and these seeds are made available because someone has been working with these seeds. A lot of the seeds that we have in our supply um, is more than we would have natural organic seeds that are unique to that particular environment. So we contaminated not only our seed supply, our food supply, and we contaminated our bodies. And so to try to correct all of that, that's why we invented the torpedo pot. Torpedo pot does the first thing, it corrects the soil. Because if you correct the soil, then it'll try to take that plant and bring out all of the good qualities that it's supposed. See, you can. I was speaking to our geneticist in Zimbabwe. One of the things we talked about is that, no one can stop something from growing. You can alter it. But if something is to grow, it's like a human being. If they're to grow, they're going to grow irregardless. You
Right.
can't stop it from growing. But you could definitely screw it up. And so that's what we're looking at, that these things are being screwed up and being altered to such a degree to accommodate shelf life, to accommodate packaging, to accommodate insect protection, fungal protection, bacterial protection. But in essence, at the end of the day, they're less and less nutrients because they're not targeting the health of the human being. They're
Yeah,
targeting all those
you
other.
know, it's almost insidious when you look at it in terms of some of the tricks that the large corporations that control feed and seeds. So one of the things that I notice is that they're making the seeds sterile. Because you see, under
Wow.
normal circumstances, if you had a plant, well, you could take the seeds and regrow them by just taking the seeds and harvesting them and saving them for the next time and then replanting them. But some of these new genetically modified, they only have one cycle. And if you want to get the seed, you have to go and buy it from them to plant it because it's sterile. It doesn't make good replenishable seeds. And that's really bad when you have a plant that makes seeds which are sterile and can't replicate. Would you agree with that concept and what they're doing with
I,
this?
I, I would like to take it one step further than what you just said, because what you said is really eloquent, is what we're facing in the industry, is that the whole concept is that you can't stop genetic inheritance. You can go ahead, like for instance, I have small trees that I planted, and those. Let's put it this way. Let me see how I can put this right. No one has the patents for growing food. No one has the ability. You can look at a geneticist; they may alter this trait and that trait, but none of them can grow food. So, in other words, at the end of the day, we don't know if we're contaminating our environment, or we don't know if we're benefiting the human food chain. We're seeing plants that are grown. I've grown plants, and I have my clients. We collaborate with our clients a lot to determine exactly what are good seeds and bad seeds. We have sometimes cucumbers that everybody's having problems with, and they think that they're doing something bad in growing their environment, and they don't realize it has nothing to do with them. Whoever modified this seed has screwed it up to such a degree that normally in our planters, in 10 planters, we can grow close to like 200 cucumbers. Within 4 feet, we grow like 60 cucumbers. It's no big deal for us. When we got this one seed that came in and we planted it, and it was beautiful. It had like hundreds of flowers all over it. All of a sudden, it just collapsed. And so this is what we're looking at when we're genetically modifying. These guys are not experts. They don't know the end game. They're not God. And so they don't know the end game. So what they're doing is playing with nature. We don't know what we're getting, and we
Right.
certainly don't know what we're eating.
Yeah, yeah. So that's very interesting. Now, you know, the other thing we were looking at, the medical society actually had a meeting on this, And this is actually becoming a major problem, and that's the plastics. They call them these plasticizers. And they're actually thinking that they're actually making people sterile, that they're decreasing the sperm count and maybe contributing, to our demise, not even having children anymore from this stuff. Very concerning. And particularly when you look at the planters and the different containers and the things that the food are grown in and packaged in are these dangerous plasticizers. So I know you're familiar with that because one of the first things you said is that you don't have those elements in your planters. And I know I see them everywhere. Tell me a little bit about that.
I don't even know where to start at because that's such a huge topic. And it's a huge topic of debate. In other words, we used to have a lot of manufacturing taking place in the United States. And we don't have as much. We've outsourced our manufacturing. And one of the reasons why we outsourced our manufacturing because with manufacturing comes a lot of contaminants. Not only do you have to bring the raw materials in, then you have to create those raw materials, which, again, there's a lot of contaminants and toxins that go into the rivers and streams and lakes and airs and everything else. Then after you bring it in, you have a decay period that goes into our rivers, streams, and lakes and toxins and in our bodies. Then we put it in packages and all this other stuff. But so the problem is that a lot of these plastic containers are done offshore. And when they're done offshore, in the United States, you may have a certain quality of plastics you have to abide by. I don't know all the schedules of the plastic right on top of my head. But you have to be able to have recycling, those that are recycled, those are PFE, different types of plastics. Right. And so the problem that we're facing is that, okay, so if we go to parts and factories where these plastics are being made, we start to see that the toxic materials that were once wasted that in our environment that we chose not to have in the United States are being reused in other environments. And so a lot of these toxic materials are being produced into other goods and services and that are being sold. And because governments do not understand the labeling behind these things, they literally are poisoning their people.
Yes.
So what we did was this. With the Torpedopot, we wanted a solution that will last us a long time. Don't get me wrong. We could have went with wooden containers. We could have went with ceramic containers. We could have went with different types of containers, but we chose not to. The reason why we chose not to is because we wanted the consumer to buy once and have for the next. We wanted that container to last literally the lifetime of that individual. So my containers out there, like I said, have been running over 7 years. I expect them to last between 15 and 20 years, untouched, which means I buy it once and I have it for a long period of time. So when you buy containers, think of how many times you recycle them in your environment. Think how many times you put them inside of it. So you might go through about 20 containers in a year for one household, and you multiply by the amount of houses in the United States, and we have all types of containers. And so we want to eliminate all these growing containers. We actually went to the mayor of the city of Philadelphia, and we asked them, we want to eliminate the use of these containers and the use of growing in soil because these soils are contaminated.
Yes.
And the containers are contaminating the environment. So we wanted to go with the wooden containers. The only thing about it, though, each plant likes a specific environment. So we have to create a clinical environment for that plant to develop its children, its future, its seed stock to continue on. And so what we did is that we chose to use the containers that we have now, but these containers that we have a lot of researchers went into them. They're shielded to prevent toxicity from entering into the environment and toxicity from building up on the walls of the planter that would upset the good fungal environment that we're trying to grow. So we realized there is a place for containers, but it has to be in a controlled environment.
That's very interesting. I know that's one of the things that I had to deal with in terms of health, and that was lead contamination. So lead is probably one of the biggest environmental hazards we have, especially in a city like Philadelphia, where we had, for many years, we had lead in the gasoline. So a lot of people don't realize it. It's just very recently that gas went unleaded. So can you imagine, since the turn of the century, what happened to all of the lead that was
Oh
contained
my
in the
God.
gas that we burned?
Oh
It
my
didn't
God.
go anywhere. Lead has a very long life. And so what happened is that lead is found in the soil in these major areas in very high concentrations. Also, and I'm actually facing this myself with my house, all of the houses that were built during that time have lead feeder pipes, which connect the main to the house. So even if you have eliminated the lead inside your house by putting in Plex or copper, the line coming from the street, that's lead. And I'm facing that right now because I had the plumber come out, and the plumber told me, according to the code, he's got to replace the line going to the box out in the street because he said that's lead, and you can't use that anymore. So you can
Doctor,
imagine every house is basically infected with this.
and that's why we need more people like you of your skill set. And I'm so appreciative of who you are and what you do, to know you as a person, because literally we've contaminated our environment. And you said something about lead that just broke my heart, because I mean, 15 years ago, what did we do? We took tires that were rolling on the road, collecting all this lead and all this waste, and we put them in our children's playgrounds. We've literally contaminated our environment, and we don't even know. We think it's just, oh, they can slide on the tires, have a great time. This is a source of transfer of lead, the greatest source of transfer that we've ever seen before. So, yeah, having you on board to identify some of these issues and to just talk about it so that people will know what to do and why they're experiencing problems in their life.
Yeah, and that's very much true. One of the things that I did when I worked for the city as the deputy health commissioner for the city, we had the LID program was part of our environmental health program, and I did a study of the youth in the youth detention or the juvenile justice system, and what I did was I measured their blood for heavy metals. And I compared that to a control group. What I found was that there was a correlation between behavior and lead level. Well known that there is a correlation between this. And so...
Tell me more about it. I'd like to know more about
it's
that.
very interesting because the evidence suggests that the lead affects the neurological system. It causes behavior, aberrant behavior. It stunts development. It causes cognitive decline and delay. These are well associated with lead poisoning. And the people who are in the juvenile justice system, it's not really their fault. I mean, they've literally been poisoned. And this results in violent behavior, poor circuitry where the neurons are connected, delayed grunt, mental retardation, lower IQ level. All of these conditions are associated with lead. And that's the reason why we have these programs, because we realize that lead is actually playing a toll on individuals. So they came up with what they call the lead abatement program, but that's not really going to help us because the lead is present everywhere. It was in the paint, it's in the dirt. It was in the tires. I mean, the lead is there. You can do what they call a abatement all you want. The lead is still there. You're not going to ever get rid of it. So one of the things that I found, which is it's a partial solution, is your diet. So Baltimore Health Department.
Tell me more.
No, this is very interesting. They found that by having a acidic diet, acidifying the diet, it reduces the absorption of lead. Okay,
Wow.
And we know that because we have what we call chelation therapy, where we chelate the lead, and that prevents the absorption of the lead. You combine it with another particle, it makes it too big for it to be filtered into the system, and then your body eliminates it. That's called chelation.
Awesome.
So we have it called chelation therapy.
You can directly target it.
Yes, yes. So foods, certain types of foods, target lead and chelate, combine with it and prevent the absorption of it. So I
love
knew
that.
this. I knew this. And in fact,
Wow.
I wrote a paper about it. And what I called were alternative methods to deal with lead. Okay. Now, I wasn't very popular because the money was in the lead abatement. It wasn't in the treatment. You understand what I'm saying? So the people who were doing the lead abatement were getting millions of dollars to scrape and cover up the lead. And my theory didn't involve that at all. It involved, having a mechanism to try to prevent the absorption of the lead into the body. So it was like some really very simple things. And I wrote a paper on it. And luckily, the API picked up my paper. Because when people came to complain to me, they couldn't because it was fact that I had studied. So this is what I said. I said, why don't you have some daycare for the children so they're not left alone to eat the paint and play in it? Why don't you have some daycare in a safe environment? I said, why don't you plant trees and scrubs around the projects so the dust doesn't blow in?
That is so odd. That, you know what? Wow.
I said, why don't you feed the children healthy, meals that will chelate the lead to prevent it from being absorbed? So I went on and on. I had a whole list. So you know what happened? They took a small amount of the money that they were doing for the for the abatement, and they say, "Okay, Dr. Robinson, we're going to spend a little of the money on that, a few million." I said, "Well, it's better than nothing, but this is where the bulk of the money should go." Isn't that interesting?
I mean, prevention, right?
Yes, yeah. So you can, prevent the absorption of it,
Yeah.
by feeding the right types of foods with the right acidity, pH level, and so forth. It chelate the iron, the lead, so that you can't absorb it. It's a simple technique.
That's brilliant.
We know that. That's one of our treatments is chelation. So we've got a long ways to go, with these issues. And what I always tell people is that your cure is not in the doctor's regimen. Your cure is in you, okay? I always tell people that. I can help you along with the process. But whatever I do, ultimately, is your body that has to correct itself, has to deal with over the infection or whatever it is. It's not what I'm doing. It's true.
That is so true. And even we're seeing from my little sideline perspective of what you just explained, we're seeing the same things. Is that it's it didn't take you. The body has an ability to heal itself once given the right nutrients to do it, and it does it in amazing ways. But we have to give it a chance.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to take it even a step further. And that is, we're so used to thinking that the normal condition is disease. The normal condition is not disease. The normal condition is health, okay? So don't get disease. Don't get sick. Then you don't have to do anything to cure it, okay? You can take that to a whole nother level. And I always think of myself as a perfect example of that. So I'm not any purist. I don't do anything special. I just do basic types of things. But I'm 70 years old. I have never been sick a day in my life. I've never had the flu. I've never had a cold. I've never broken a bone. I've never spent a day in the hospital. Never. In all these years, and I'm going to knock on wood, you don't know what can happen. But I don't think that's by chance. That's not chance. That's the lifestyle that you have to have.
The lifestyle, right?
Yes. Yes, it is. And it's one of moderation and not overindulging in things that make you feel good. You can't do that. Normally, if it makes you feel good, you better limit it. Like drinking, smoking cigarettes, doing make you feel good. Nah, you can't do those, And then the other thing too, which people forget about, Here's a perfect example. Let's take the vaccines, for example. Most people don't know how a vaccine works. What a vaccine is, it's an alter or the weakened form of the disease itself. So when a person gives you a vaccine, they literally give you the disease, but of course in a much weaker and less virulent form. Then what happens is your body reacts to the resistant or the weakened, agent. So now when you get the real agent, you've already built up antibiotics and protective mechanism in your body. And I'll never forget how they originally formed it. It was smallpox or cowpox. So what happened was the cows had a form of smallpox. And it was a much weaker form because, of course, it wasn't even the same species as human, but it has the similar, characteristics. So what the doctor noticed is that if he gave the cowpox to somebody, then that made them resist the smallpox. That's how the vaccines came about. Usually we find these things by chance. And that's the same thing even with antibiotics. Now, one of the things that you have to realize is that all medicines are plants. All medicines are plants, okay? That's the definition, okay? The penicillin is a fungus. That's a fungus. And what happened was, he noticed that when this substance was available, there was a circle where there was no bacteria growing. And what happened was things are smart. So they say, well, listen, we're going to make this substance to keep ourselves from getting eaten by the bacteria. And it's a fungus. It's a fungus. So he said, well, if I give you this fungus, then this will prevent, these bacteria from happening. And actually how penicillin works is it works specifically on the membrane or the cell, the structure of the cell, or the wall, the cell wall. And that's why it only works for certain types of things. Like, for example, it won't work for mycoplasms or other types of bacteria which don't have a rigid cell wall. Penicillin requires a cell wall. And what it does is it breaks the connection between the cell wall so that the bacteria is not vibrant. So that's how it works.
That's one of the things that I do with my torpedopots is that I monitor my health. So when I'm eating healthy and I eat purely nothing but food from my torpedopots, and then I turn around and eat something, I look at the behavior of my body. I look at what it's going through. And then from there, I can literally determine the state of the health of my body. So I can control, not necessarily, you can't go down to the health, but you can control all the symptoms. Like, for instance, the food you eat, a lot of the toxins try to emit themselves from the body. They show up in your fluids in your body, from your nose, from your throat, and your health. And all these toxins are trying to find their way out. And so you get to really see exactly your state. And the food, good food, cleanses you. It washes your body free of all of these toxins. And that's why it's so important, like you said, to be in a good state of health than it is to look for to focus on a disease, but focus
curing
on
the disease. Yes, yeah.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the fiber that's contained in plants, which is very beneficial. And the way I look at it as a scrub brush. And so when you eat the fiber is a scrub brush. So as it goes through your colon and your intestines, it literally scrubs it, and it removes the toxic waste and stuff like that, scrubs it. That's because it's stuck to the walls. So the average American that eats red meat, they have as many as 5 pounds of dead, undigested material in their colon at any one time. Just sitting there. And there's no wonder that you develop cancer and other things like that, polyps and things like that, because this material is toxic. It's toxic waste that's literally sitting in your system. So you're not going to avoid the toxic waste, but what you can do is you can get it moved out of your system as fast as possible. so it doesn't sit there and cause trouble. And that's why fiber is so important, because it'll increase the transit time and move that dead mess out of you rapidly. Very important.
And you're right. Thank you. That's part of my cleansing process, is that I realized that that this fiber, the plant materials, causes your body to actually work to move these things out of you, and it's just great, that you can be able to do that. And it's even though you can target various organs with different plants, depending upon what the plant, what the type of nutrition that the plant provides, or what type of ions the plant wants to give off. But the fact of the matter is that, like you said, prevention and cleaning your body out, knowing that you can wash your body out with something natural. You said it perfectly. Medicine is really, and I tell my clients that all the time, medicine is nothing but plants. The only thing about it is an extracted form of plants that has been hydrated and put into a pill form, and however you want to look at it, to get you to think.
Well, the main thing is they've tested it and they have a consistent dose, so they know what the dose is. And then sometimes they'll add chemical, or they call it pegylate. They'll add things to the molecule to keep it from moving through your system fast, so that it'll stay in your system longer. There are lots of little tricks that they pull, but basically it's the plant that they've done. So listen, we've had a wonderful conversation. Our time is starting to run down. We can spend days talking about this topic and never really cover it. So we're certainly going to have you back on the Insightful Journal. So I would like to just say that we welcome your comments. And don't forget, if you like what you hear, make sure that you subscribe and press that like button. That's very important for us, so that we can continue to bring you people like Daral to talk about things which you are not going to hear in the mainstream. So thank you so much, Daral, for your insightfulness in the Insightful Journal. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I like talking to you. I learn more from you than I do from a book.
Okay. Great.
Cut.
Okay. Cut. How is it? How did it go?
That was very good. Very good. Daral, can you hear me?
I can hear you, man.
Do me a favor.
What?
Whatever you talking about, Torpedopot, bring a pot.
Yeah, I was trying to show it. Make sure you show it. But maybe you can edit in.
Session, man.
Edit in, because you got to see it.
I didn't know it was the real session, dude.
Go grab a pot. Go grab a pot real quick. Grab a pot. We going to splice it in.
All right.
Yeah, gotta see it. That don't mean nothing, just describing it. Well, and I tried. I said, Daral said, you got a pot there? Let's see it. I tried. Yeah, you can go get one. You know you got to have your props.
Right.
Well, you know what we can do too is we can edit. We can put in the
We'll do all that. We'll do all that.
Okay.
Let's get them on.
I didn't know it was going to be a real session. I thought it was.
It's real.
You guys are real, man. All right. What do you want me to do, dude?
Okay, let's see it. So hold it up so we can get a picture of it.
Yeah, and talk about it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here we have the famous Torpedopot. Mr. Addison, can you just tell me some of the components of this pot?
Sure. The pot has been designed. We realize that the pot has been designed out of materials that don't produce toxins or decompose in the environment. Also, the pot prevents toxins from building up on the walls of the planter. So it releases it, it stops the releasing of any chemicals within that plant's environment. The pot also by design has a certain amount of holes because it's only designed to hold a certain amount of water inside this planter. Because most planters they're either constricted, so you either drown the microorganisms, or it has too much release where that they starve themselves, they dry out. You have to redo the colonies. It was made in a round fashion because it wants to be able to hit the sunlight 360 degrees. There's no dead spaces in the pot. Normally when there's crevices or any bends and folds in any environment, what you'll end up for any square environment or anything else, you'll see within that squareness and where the bend takes place, it's going to be microbial buildup because that's a dead space. So there's no dead spaces in this. All the materials in this planter are made out of, materials that are very clinical. Their materials are better than the materials that you would use in the piping at your house, so that you won't have any microfilm or biofilm or anything else developing in there. It's designed to be a clinical environment. And then we have the releasing mechanism, which is the hose with the Torpedopot. And that allows the water and the nutrients to go through. Once the water and nutrients come in here, it can be released inside the planter. These planters are, remember now, when you have water coming to this planter, you have in your house maybe from 100 PSI, 60 PSI, 40 PSI. So it's got to be able to hold the pressure that's coming from the water source into these particular planters. The planters also, with the back of the planters themselves, they're able to hook up within hundreds of planters from one water source. So from one water source, one hose goes to each planter. And from there, if one planter can grow, this small 9-inch planter can grow 17 tomatoes. If you get 100 of these, then you can imagine how many tomatoes you can grow with 100 of these.
Yeah,
planters.
they come in different sizes, Daryl. The planters
They certainly do. They come in 6-inch, they come in 9-inch, 16-inch, 20-inch, 24-inch. And we actually designed the larger ones for companies who have bigger requirements. And we do that with the planters themselves. But these hoses that you see, we have nano and micro-sized particle hose coming from these particulates here. So these hoses are specifically designed to release the right amount of moisture and water within that environment. And so we go down to the nanoamps and the microamps in terms of the pore size of these hoses. So they won't inundate the environment, flood the environment out. And so you'll be able to release water consistently and flow themselves around. And of course, I talked about the pressure. A lot of the components inside the planter, like you'll see the shielding and this part in here, they're designed to, when you have water flowing through your planter, and there's condensation, you also build up mold and mildew through that condensation line. And that also reduces the amount. So these are designed to spin if you were to cut them and anything else, and reduce that condensation to create an environment specifically for the plant that won't create any condensation, mold buildup within that environment. And of course, the walls of the planter have been designed to allow the root system, that's why it's curvature, to flow around, because inside of this planter, this 9-inch planter, we've had about 5 tomato plants, and we grew 17 tomatoes. So these 5 tomato plants root system have to be contained in this planter. Now, because we are able to nutritionally feed these planters, the root systems don't grow very long. The reason why they don't grow long, because if you have food in your refrigerator, you won't have to go to the supermarket to buy any food because it's readily available. And that's the whole concept of Torpedopot.